man named James Patterson Smith is the most evil man on the planet, ironically. And the reason why I say ironically is because the way I said his name probably doesn't come off as something like, oh, this guy is definitely, James Patterson Smith is definitely an evil son of a gun. No. You guys probably would have insinuated that somebody with the name of James Patterson Smith was probably some kind of philanthropist or psychologist or sociologist or giveaway artist of some kind. But really, he's the worst of the bunch. James Patterson Smith was a divorcee located near Manchester and had two relationships before murdering his last relationship, and I mean that literally. But the most known one, besides Kellyanne Bates, was Tina Watson, which he ended up using her as a punching bag from the years of 1980 to 1982, and around that time, she had gotten divorced with him, and a lot of other stuff subjugated after that. The way this man was described was ironically enough to my pinpoint accuracy of not accuracy in the beginning of this video. He was described as a well-groomed, well-taught, and well-mannered person that was just in his house all the time with his wife. But behind the curtains, he was extremely and utterly abusive towards his partners and every other person that was in his life. So what does somebody like this do when they're not stopped? They decide to take out their anger on other people. In particular, younger people. We see this with other serial killers like Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer. They take out all of their horrible surroundings around them onto other people. In this case, James decided to do this to a young Kellyanne Bates, who was only 17 years old at the time of her murder. That's as old as me, pretty much. Now guys, I am actually about to go into horrific detail. I'm not lying about this. There's some stuff that might actually make you guys feel really sick after hearing this. Like, really sick. I read this and I felt sick. Imagine hearing it from somebody's voice. It isn't going to make you feel any better than how you're feeling right now. This video is for purely educational reasons behind sociology, serial killing, and psychology, really. And I want to kind of just pass those four threads out because I want everyone to understand that I do not have fun making these videos. I simply want people to understand that this world is a very dangerous place, and the best way to prescribe stuff like this and to get rid of stuff like this is to talk about stuff like this. I'm a true enthusiast and believer in that. So without further ado, let's get into the video. James started dating Kelly when she was 14 years old and stayed in a relationship with her up until her death when she was 17 years old. During the time of the relationship, she had only seen her parents with this man a total of just one time. In that one time, the parents were completely and utterly unsure of this man and tried their absolute best as the parents of Kelly to dismember this relationship that was happening, this very messed up origin type of relationship. Of course, to absolute no avail. Matter of fact, what would happen from there on forth was horrible. James would pretend to be Kelly and would write down letters pretty much for any anniversary or any kind of birthday for Kelly's parents. It's assumed that obviously Kelly told him about the birthdays and the anniversary or whatever he was sending postage notes about to James, because there's no other way he could have known unless he somehow looked through it, a future week, or just asked these people when they were born, which could have been a thing, but most likely was not. Although James had stopped seeing the parents of Kelly, Kelly continued to see her parents very fluently, in fact, and before the postage notes, she would come over to the house of her parents and would start showing up with bruises and all sorts of injuries on her body. And of course, it was around this time where stuff weren't going so right. So pretty much what started happening at this point is that James Smith started making up a bunch of lies. He started saying that whenever Kellyanne's brother would show up to his house asking for her, the thing that he would resort to is she isn't here, or she's sleeping, or she's doing something else, in a nutshell. But obviously, she wasn't, and she was just being abused horribly. It was reported multiple times now throughout the entire documentation of her death that 3 weeks before her death, her eyes had been ripped out her sockets, and she had lived with them. Lived with that. At this time too, he had beat her to a pulp multiple times, had tried drowning her multiple times, and eventually would drown her. But obviously not before the amount of immense torture that was impacted on her. Rather it be her actually being branded with a piece of iron by this complete and utter sicko thing that makes this beyond just a sad story that happens almost every day, not just a basic torture nowadays, a real run of the mill type of thing that happens, is that her brother showed up. Her father tried the absolute best in his power. The mother tried the absolute best in her power to help this young woman get out of this relationship with this old, crippled in the mind man. The fact of the matter is that she was not going to do that. This woman was not only mentally challenged, but she simply had been too much in love at that point, and maybe she had just felt way too deep in to leave. The one last creepiest thing ever is that a detective that had been on cases for 15 years straight. This is the worst case he had ever investigated. Ever.